Go back, if you will, some time to your youth, when you may have heard the voice, not knowing it was the voice, not even suspecting. Perhaps you called it a hunch or an instinct, and later as you grew up you used the word intuition. You said, I feel a certain way, and I feel confident, and this is what I'm going to do. And nothing could sway you. One way or another, you were in communication, perhaps, with the voice, and yet it wasn't clearly defined. And then perhaps one day you actually heard the voice, and without these preparations, without those moments of pure, undiluted intuition, you would have been frightened. You might have said, I'm hearing sounds within myself. I better see a psychiatrist. Or maybe I'm becoming double-minded. Maybe that accident had an effect upon me. Always, the voice has surprised those who receive it. And yet there are times when the preparation for the voice is so complete that it comes to you as if you were old friends. The importance of the voice is that once having been assured from within, directly, not by a person outside, not by a situation, but by the actual voice, and having found that voice to be true, dependable, in fact sometimes so powerful that it sweeps aside all that had appeared to be opposition. Having undergone the experience one time or another, to you, God is no longer a word in a book or something you pray to out there and up there. There is a new relationship established. And from this confidence that comes when the voice directs you, you are prepared to be fed by the infinite in such a way that from within you build out of your own substance, your own fabric, a new life. Greater am I in the midst of you than in the world. And this word greater begins to open up. Greater in every way. Greater intelligence, greater power, greater health, greater abundance, greater faculties, greater harmony, greater peace. If you will make the about face, the turning, which the Bible calls the repenting, and begin to live from this I which does speak. Now there was a man in the wilderness. Life was pretty harsh to him at this particular moment. Everything he tried seemed to fail. He even wanted to die. He had seen his beloved nation turning away to a golden calf. He had seen Judea turn to worship Baal. And in the wilderness he prayed to God and said, let me die. What have I to live for? Jezebel has my countrymen. She has married the king. She has turned him. I don't even have a student Not one person who can carry on the word. I have failed. But then came the voice. And for Elijah, everything changed. He was hungry. He had no food, but it appeared. He had no followers, but he was assured that there were 7,000 who had not bowed to Baal. And the voice guided him. And don't you realize that the voice fed him? That the voice sustained him? That the voice directed him? That the voice prepared those who would listen to his story? Where else could Elijah have received the help that came to him? He didn't have any books in the wilderness. He had no radio and no TV. He was alone to all outward appearances. But from that moment, when he was fed by ravens, everything changed for Elijah, and that voice within proved, greater am I in the midst of you. It was Jezebel in the end who was put to flight. Let's look at Elijah. Let's see if we can find in his story something in our story. He himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, came and sat down under a juniper tree. He requested for himself that he might die. He said, "It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." As he lay and slept under a juniper, behold, an angel touched him and said unto him, "Arise and eat." What is this angel? Did a little Cupid on wings appear in the wilderness, or was it an inner impulse, as all angels are? What is this angel then that touches you and gives you an awareness above your normal mind, your normal sensibilities? What is this angel that brings you the inner word? It says now to Elijah, "Arise and eat." He looks around. Where can I eat? There's nothing here to eat. But the higher self, the I, knows there's something to eat, and even appears as something to eat in a most miraculous way. Can we accept that the I of our being can do this? That it knows no limitations that we know? That it can manufacture out of essence that which is needed for this day? Elijah, arise and eat. How well we remember a later phrase, "Arise, pick up thy bed and walk." The same I in Elijah that spoke through Jesus, the very same I, the very same words, "Arise." The very same words that Jesus used to the daughter of Jairus, "Arise, maid." Arise. Lift up your vision. Lift up the I in the midst of you. Lift up your consciousness and eat. Food is present. Your human eyes don't see it, but arise and you will see the food. And now the I in the midst is being lifted in Elijah. The world isn't going to be as black as it was, because he is receiving new vision from within. He's not going to want to die anymore. He has a mission now. And he looked He looked where? He was looking in his own soul. That's where you look. His own soul was looking and beheld that food which was invisible heretofore to human eyes. Behold, there was a cake baked on the coals and a cruse of water at his head, and he did eat and drink and laid him down again. Out of nowhere, he was fed. It won't come the same way to everyone, but it does come. And the angel of the Lord came a second time and touched him and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. Just like Jesus later, 40 days. Just like Moses, 40 years. In other words, in this I, living in inner communion, he was lifted to the Christ consciousness. I in the midst of thee, raised up, will lift all men unto me. And now he was on Mount Horeb, the mountain of high consciousness. Now things were different. Now he beheld a new heaven and a new earth. There was a transformation of consciousness. I, in the midst of him, made all things new. He came hither unto a cave, and lodged there, and behold, the word of the Lord came, said unto him, What doest thou here, Elijah? And he said, I've been very jealous for the Lord, God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant. They have thrown down thine altars. They have slain thy prophets with a sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life. No, take it away. And he said, Go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still, small voice. All these degrees, the wind, the earthquake, the fire. And then Christ realized the still, small voice. When Christ was realized within, he then heard, Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which has not kissed him. And he learned that the Spirit of the Lord had gone before him to do what no mortal man can do. So with each of us, it matters not what the picture is this moment. It mattered not what the picture was that moment to Elijah. It mattered not what was presented to the man called Jesus. Never was the picture true. Always the inner self was present, perfect, functioning. Always God is. We learn that our entire human lifespan is an initiation, from birth to death. It is a building process in which we become aware of I, who speak, who go before you, who lead you, who teach you, who feeds you, and ultimately who resurrects you out of the tomb of a human span. When we sit back and try to coax I to come to us, we find that we fail. It is necessary to prepare for I to speak. And that preparation is very clearly given to us by Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. The preparation is what may be called the transmutation of karma. You come into this world not knowing where you've been, what you've been, or who you've been, or what you've done. Your karma goes before you. It must be forgiven by deeds. You must pay your debts. And these debts are the violation of the truth of identity, the unknowing that follows the emptying out of all of the false concepts is the way you transmute your karma, the way you pay your debts, releasing every belief that is contrary to the perfection of God. Now, until this is done, I cannot speak to you. I cannot speak where there is a division in consciousness. I cannot speak to a mortal being. Life can only pour through one who is living in the spiritual identity. And therefore I, who speak, can only speak when you have accepted that identity. The transmutation of karma is the way in which you forgive all others as you are to be forgiven of their violations of truth. But now we're coming to a place where I must be seen in a much broader aspect than the human self who sits here and says, I'm going to wait for that voice to speak to me. These are not the proper conditions for receptivity to the voice. I'm going to suggest to you several things you shall do successfully in order to make the voice a habitation where it feels the invitation of your soul. If you have seen the I in your friend, in your loved one, in yourself, you will need no instruction on how to go further, because that I will take you all the distance. But if you have not yet seen that I, it is because you have not been willing to see it everywhere. All of us, at one time or another, are very anxious to claim divinity, spiritual identity, while we are unwilling to claim that identity in others. Now, it is very difficult to build the awareness of I in every one you see. And yet, until you do, all of the previews you may have had of the voice, all of the preliminaries, will have failed to arouse you to the level where the voice is your permanent dispensation. If it came to you last October and you said, my, that's marvelous, but you didn't take that as a command to recognize the I everywhere, don't be surprised if it hasn't returned. We are given glimpses of it only to know that it is there. But every time we receive a glimpse of it, it is saying to us, now that I have given you a preview, if you want more, here is what you must do. And part of that is seeing not the form but the I of an individual. And this demands many, many months of practice. Some of you may be unwilling to give it that practice. Others will accept nothing less. Now what I mean is this. There's a sequence. The first thing you see of an individual is the form. And if you remember, you think of the I. We want to reverse that. We want to be conscious of the I. And if the form must be something you're aware of, that comes number 2. Now this is a training to look directly at a form of a person, of a tree, of a stone, of a bird, of any object, any person, anything, and any condition, to look everywhere, being first I conscious and then form conscious. You'll miss the first 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, and each time you miss, you must remember to correct it. So that when we greet each other, the first thought in your consciousness is, there is I. And then you become conscious of the form. Always in that instant, when you first accept the I and then the form, you are fulfilling the intelligence of that I which says, I in the midst am greater than he who walks the earth. Now this I that you look at, which is invisible to your human sense, is yourself. And as long as you are unwilling or unable to make the constant effort to recognize this I, which is yourself, in every form, you are not preparing for I who speak. Because I, being infinite, speak infinitely, and unless you are living in the I which is infinite, which is the substance of every form, you are cutting off your access to the voice. Now this is a turning away from everything you see and accepting it as the I of your being first. And there are no exceptions. Friend and foe, bird and cat, every material object in this world must be seen as your invisible I. Until this is away. And then every time you miss, you must be aware you have missed, so that you can make the instant correction. And if you fail the whole first hour, you must be willing to do it again the second hour, and the third and the fourth. You must be willing to do this as long as is necessary, until between you and everyone you meet there is an invisible binding instantly in your consciousness, like a steel rod between you and that individual. Closer to you, stronger in your consciousness than anything else about that person. The moment you see that person, there should be this steel rod springing up inside, which is your consciousness of the I, that the I of me here is my name, and the I of me in that person is my name. There and here I am. This I is more important than that person and than your person. When you have established that, you will know that the I of you is where the person is and where the form of you is. This constant practice builds your consciousness that the I of you is infinite. It centers your complete attention on this I. It takes you out of that personal sense of self, that human ego, which is so busy fulfilling its personal desires. It makes you one with the source of all things. And until you've made the effort, you can't possibly guess how this can change your complete experience. Now you're going to see all ages, and it won't make any difference if you're looking at an infant or an adolescent or a middle-aged person or an older person. The truth is always the same. Instantly, I there and I here are one and the same, without separation. And then, as you begin to be aware of this, as you begin to feel this, you'll find your relationships are changing. And the I which you are acknowledging in the midst of you and the other individual as your self, it will begin to guide you, to regulate and adjust all of your commerce with that individual. Whatever is involved with that individual will become guided under the law of I. Now, I know from experience that I cannot do this just because I start to do it, because it's a long habit that has been ingrained in us to recognize form as a person. This form is Geraldine. This form is Mary. This form is Susie. This form is Harry. But no, neither of those forms are important to us, because where the four forms are, I am. And until I can establish that in consciousness, I have not crucified form in my consciousness. And I cannot be resurrected in my consciousness. And then the speaking of I is impossible because I've not established the oneness that is necessary. But if everyone in this room was seen by you as I, or even two, then you would have two or more, and I would be in the midst of them. If everyone in this room was seen by you as I, you could rest with the knowledge that the law of divinity would regulate your activity with every person here. Every form would come under the law of I, because where the form is, the I of you truly is. You're getting out of your form. You can accept the I there, but now you're accepting it where everyone else is. And no matter where form appears, the I of you is. This is a prerequisite to finding the kingdom of heaven, where I speaks. As you practice it more and more, and its power becomes clear to you, you will understand that there is no form anywhere that need concern you in the slightest, whether it owes you money or you owe it money, whether it's antagonistic to you or you to it. There is no power in form when you have accepted that wherever form appears, I the self of you, is. This essence that you are is where your child is, your mother, your father, your enemy, your friend. This essence that you are is throughout this universe. This essence that you are is the sea of spirit without boundary or limitation. This essence is called I, and it is everywhere. And it is your name. It is your identity. It is your being. And unless you claim it to be your being first, you will be fooled by the forms, and you will think that you are separate and apart from those forms. You are not separate and apart from those forms. Every form is a concept entertained about the one invisible essence, the I, the being, that is invisibly present everywhere. Never are you separate from any one, because the you that is separate is not you. You are the essence of God. Where you stand and where your neighbor stands, both places are the essence of God which you are. And unless you are unified in I, knowing you are never separate from another because only the essence of you is there, I cannot speak to you. Now let us establish then that in this room is one essence. We're not concerned about our forms for the moment. I am that substance which is I, which exists throughout what we call inner space and outer space, time, place, condition. All these things are in I. Now let's go to the well of Samaria. Here's a woman pumping and pumping and pumping. But I am there. She doesn't recognize I. All she knows is she's got to get water out of that well, but I am there. The I of you is right where this woman is pumping. She doesn't know it. Every day she's pumping more water. And now there's another man there, and that's the I of you. The I of you is both Jesus and the woman pumping at the well. Only in Jesus the I is realized. In the woman the I is not realized by the woman. In Jesus the I is realized by Jesus. He knows the I of himself to be the I of the woman, as you know the I of you to be the I of him and the I of her. You are there this moment. It is yourself. And the I of you speaking through Jesus says to the woman, if you knew me, you wouldn't have to pump like that. And she doesn't understand. And she keeps pumping. Now, isn't that not a perfect example of what we have been doing all our lives? She does not see the I, she sees a man. You do not see the I of you, you see a man or a woman where you are. And so you keep pumping at the well. When you read, we don't have to strive for a living in I, it sounds like words in a book again. Why? Because we're pumping and pumping as a human being. But right there is I. And when you touch that I, that's the end of all the pumping. Everywhere you look, in all of the healings, they are all demonstrating that wherever I is realized, there's nothing to be healed. It's the unwillingness or the unawareness that where you stand, I am. And in that unawareness that I am standing where you are, you live in this me, blind to the I, that is your being there, blind to the essence but aware of the form, when the essence is what makes the form possible. The essence is not in the form, the I is not in the form is in the I. The form is in the essence. That's the nature of the illusion. Not knowing that the form is in the I. The I is greater than the form, bigger than the form. We are walking in the I of our own being. Our form is in the I of our own being. The early Christians were called fishes for that reason. They were forms in the ocean. They were being told, you're just a fish. You're in something bigger than a fish. You're in the ocean. Translated spiritually, you're in the sea of spirit, which is I. Right now, you're standing in your own I, but only aware of the form of you and not the fullness of the I that envelops, embraces, and encompasses that form. And so the form walks forth unaware of the greatness of its own being surrounding it. It's a fish in the ocean, unaware of the ocean. But when you become aware of the ocean of spirit around you, which is I, you see that same ocean of spirit encompasses every other form on the earth. Every form on this earth is walking in the one I of your being, the one sea of spirit. And that is why there is unity in I and division in me. In me, I am separated from your form. In I, the sea of spirit joins us so that we are two separate forms in one, same, indivisible I. And when your consciousness rests on the indivisible I, which embraces all forms, and your identity is that I, we are no longer brothers and sisters. We are the one I. And that consciousness is the consciousness in which I speaks. Now the power of I, when it speaks, is such that there is no power on the earth to oppose it. It makes no difference what the nature of the problem is, how critical, how impossible, how beyond all mortal knowledge, how beyond every X-ray chart. When I speak, the earth melts. All through the Bible, practically every book of the Bible has a reference or more to I. Ezekiel, Daniel, Leviticus, Exodus, Deuteronomy, just go through them and everywhere you find these subtle allusions to the voice and the power of the voice. Job 3,000 years ago heard the voice. And often it's referred to as the thunder of his voice, and mistaken to mean that God is wrathful or angry at the world when they're talking about that inner thunder, the thunder of the silence within, the thunder of that voice within which breaks every shackle, which opens eyes, which opens ears, which straightens bones. In other words, the inner voice is the power. the omnipotence of God made audible in the soundless sound. The inner voice speaks with tongues. When it speaks, everything must manifest in accordance with its voice. This must become real to us. Now, if you've had the experience of the voice, you know that you can depend upon it. You can follow it blindfolded. It goes before you. It really does prepare a table in the wilderness. It really does take you through new mansions. And everything you do to make possible your receptivity to the voice is helping your own eventual realization of heaven on earth. I hesitate to talk about what the voice says. Tell no man, we're told. Even we are told never to use the phrases that come so sacredly, except if we're teaching. And somehow I've always felt in a class that's somewhat a little too public, especially when it goes out on tapes. But there have been so many beautiful experiences of the voice that I don't think for my own self that I could have possibly ever wanted to teach this message if I had not first heard the voice. Because with it, there's a feeling of ordination. Without it, I can't possibly imagine that I have anything to say. Of mine own self, I can do nothing. But that voice, it seems to give you an awareness of a land that you've never seen. It seems to tell you that if you're faithful to my direction, my guidance, you will see this land. It seems to say, I can take you out of the dying sense of self into the undying self. It seems to contain within itself the fulfillment of everything in the Bible that we have called a promise. When it says, I am the way. Now there's nobody who can make that voice come. There's nothing you can do to make it come and say, now I'm ready. Even Samuel, when he said, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth, wasn't making the voice come. He was merely indicating that he had prepared faithfully to receive it. Paul didn't make the voice come, but it spoke to him when he was blinded at Damascus, told him where to go, to Ananias to be healed. And he went and he was healed. Always, when the voice speaks, it is not just the word of this moment. Everything in the outer manifestation is completed at the same instant. It is a complete experience. From the moment that the voice said, go to Ananias to be healed, there was no question but Paul would have his eyes back. And even Ananias received the same voice telling him that Paul would come. Now when we are told to die to self, it means die to limitation. Die to the finite self. Die to the limited self. Die to that self which only knows what it has experienced up to now. But it means be born become alive to the self which can do all things. You may have thought that you were seeking God, and have discovered too that the ego of you sought God, but you didn't really. The ego sought God for its own personal purposes. And if you overcame the ego which was seeking God and sought God for God's sake, you knew the difference. And then there's still another place where you find you haven't really been seeking God fully, in the sense that you're holding back just a little, unwilling to say, Father, here I am, turning myself over to you completely, so that there's nothing left here except a desire to be in you, a complete and total surrender, where there's not a concept remaining, not a person here wanting God, but a total about-face in which you completely give yourself to I. Like that couple who came into the disciples and one held some money back. Peter discovered it, and the man was killed instantly. This was telling us that you can't hold a remnant of yourself back. All of you has to be given to I. There are critical emergencies when you forget yourself completely. And that's when I seems to make itself known to some of us. This crisis comes up and you're spellbound. But I takes over. Many persons who have never had the I experience have had it in moments like that. They're taken right out of their human selfhood. They're scared out of their wits. They're numbed, paralyzed. And in that moment when they are, I seems to come. A glimpse. And they think it's a miracle that everything clears up. It isn't a miracle at all. I simply reveals itself. Now when you come out of the dying self, the mortal self, and accept I here and I there as I, you can see why there are subtleties in the Bible that cannot begin to be understood until you know that I here and I there is your name. For instance, you see that Jesus was demonstrating I here and I there. He was demonstrating the nature of that infinite I. Here's Jesus over here as a form. Here are the starving multitudes as forms. But it's all in the I. And here's the fulfillment of their hunger out of nowhere, but really coming out of the I. That I wasn't inside the form of Jesus alone. He was demonstrating that that I is elsewhere beside in his form. The I of Jesus was not located in his form. It was everywhere that manna was appearing out of the sky. That I was out of the limitation of the dying Jesus, of the mortal Jesus, of the form Jesus.
He was demonstrating that the I of his being was not bounded by the form. You must learn that. You must learn that the I of your being is not bounded by your form. And that's why you must learn to recognize the I of your being in every object that you see. Even silly little things. A piece of string. Everything that you see, you must register as being possible only because there is an I of you that is there. Now don't make the mistake of thinking that string is the I of you, or that person is the I of you, or that dog is the I of you. They are not. I have had the I of me tell me very forcibly they are not. I is never anything but I. I is never the person. I is never the object or the condition. I is always I. That's your name. You're never anything but I. You're never the form. I isn't being your form. I is being I, and you are that I and not the form. Don't make the mistake of saying I is the substance of this physical form. It isn't. I is your name. And don't hold on to the form like those two who came into the disciples and held a little money back. Let go of the form. Once you are willing to accept the I, accept it as 100% of you. Then there's no materiality still remaining. You're not holding out a little. Then you're in the infinity of your being. Then you're in unlimitation. You have no boundaries. You have no finitude. There must be a knowledge that I am I, not form. And right where your neighbor is, that I there is you, and not the form of the neighbor. The I of you that is there is all that is there. Until the forms to you are mental images. And the I of you is the only reality, everywhere. What's between the I of you and those mental images? A mind. Without that mind, there'd be no mental images. There would only be I. The image maker, the mind, is converting I into a sense of form. The form is never there. I am. Give the universe back to I. Accept yourself as the I. Do it every opportunity you have. When you say grace at your breakfast table, at your dinner table, be aware that the objects that are there, the food that is there, the plates that are there, all this is made possible only because there is an invisible I. And it is so vast, so incomprehensible, that all of the objects that we see in this world are our concepts about that invisible I. We're living in the world of effects or concepts about that invisible I. And we are learning to accept the invisible source which makes these objects possible in the visible world. When you live in that invisible source and claim it to be your name, everywhere, your being, these objects in the visible take on the qualities of I. Never do they become I. but they take on the qualities of I. They come closer to the divine. That grapefruit, that orange, that peach, you must know that this could never be on the earth if there were not an invisible I, the I of you. And then through processes, through world mind and individual mind, we have trees, leaves, blossoms, fruit. I is the invisible reality, and all the rest becomes concept about the infinitude of I. But when you're living in the I, you are in the source, governed by the source, and your life shows forth the perfection of the source. You are in the substance. You're not living in effect. It wouldn't matter if you had taken all of the notes in the world about what we're discussing here if you went no further. It must be your living consciousness that I of you is all there is in this universe, and it is everywhere, and that means you are everywhere as that I. You are behind everything that appears. I and the Father, one. The Father is behind it all. Father and I are one. I am behind it all. And that's where you rest, in that knowledge. And then the voice does speak. And it does thunder. And it does guide. And it does light your path. And it does the miracle work. To whoever is faithful to I am faithful. I can never function except through your enlightened consciousness that I am present. When you acknowledge this invisible presence behind all things as your presence behind all things, then you're not limiting I to you. You're not saying over here is I and I'm going to have a little fence around it and that's I. Now this should be practiced until it's daily consciousness. Grace becomes a different way of saying grace. It also becomes a way of reminding yourself that this object that I'm about to eat isn't I. I'm not about to eat myself. But this object is a group of qualities held together in mind. And that mind is forming a concept or group of concepts about I. And over there's another object. And that is held together in mind because it is a group of concepts about I. Always, everything is a group of concepts about I. That's how miraculous I am. And up and down every street and every highway, there's no empty space. There's always invisible I. There would be no buildings if there were no invisible I. There would be no streets. There would be no pipes under the streets. There would be no electricity, no lights. All of these are our concepts about the qualities of I. And when we graduate from the concepts, we will find higher concepts. That's why we have improvements. And ultimately, we go beyond the concept to the I itself, which is its own sun, its own light, its own time, its own space. And no more do we have concepts about it. We're coming out of the dying self, out of the time-space limited concept of self, out of the form self, out of the dying form self. That is the importance of the message of Christ. It takes you out of the dying form. It crucifies the concept and resurrects us into the reality. I can never leave you. I am an infinite voice. When you surrender to the voice, it is not just a little glimmering inside you. You are swallowed up by the infinite. You rest in the infinite voice. And that infinite voice is the universal consciousness of God. We are all in that voice. And once you receive that voice within yourself, then the voice within you becomes the voice of the infinite. It told Elijah to go forth and make Elisha his prophet. It told Elijah to go forth and appoint another one king. And everything he did worked. Every time the voice says to you, do this, if you recognize it as the voice of the Spirit of God in you, you are listening to your very being. And whatever you do is ordained. It is the Lord building your house. It must succeed, because I am success already. Blessed are the pure at heart. They shall see him face to face. When there is a total forgiveness of the world of effects, of the people, the places, and the conditions, because you know them to be effects, unaware of their identity, unaware that they all move in the invisible ocean of spirit called I. When you have seen through their error and have forgiven them, for they know not what they do. When you have accepted that the they that you have forgiven are not there, but only the I of being is there, then you are realizing oneness with the infinite. And no good thing can be withheld. For all that I have infinitely must flow through the realized I. Wherever you have accepted I am all there is no foe, no enemy. There are no negative qualities in the world. There are no errors. There is no evil. There is no destruction. There is no disease. These are all the appearances that are unaware of the invisible I, the essence that is ever present. These are all the women of Samaria standing at the well and pumping away, unaware that I am standing there. And if they could but see me where they are, they would never have to pump again. We're in the upper firmament, out of the lower, in the upper room. And as we rest there, in this invisible one eye, everywhere, the Master said, if you go forth and rest in Jerusalem, tarry in Jerusalem, I will come to thee. And this is where we're going to hear the voice speak. In the upper room, in the quietness which accepts wherever you look, my being is. It doesn't matter if you see it or not. Wherever you look, my being is. Right where the freeway appears to man, that's my invisible being there. Right where the clouds appear, that's my invisible being there. And that ocean out there, you're mistaken. You call it the Pacific Ocean. It isn't. It's your invisible being. And when you accept that and live there in your consciousness, you will see this world is your invisible being. You can rest there. I am infinite being, and beside me there is no other. This takes it out of your human mind, out of your human manipulation. This is surrender. It is releasing God and releasing me. It is releasing my neighbor. It is where I must dwell for 40 days until that moment when I speak. When the I that I have acknowledged turns right around and acknowledges itself.
When there's no two anymore. There's not I and me, there's not I and you, there's not I and him and it. There's only I. And it is I, everywhere. The whole world becomes hundreds of thousands and millions of concepts all about the one I that I am everywhere. And when you practice this first with each person, so that when the doorbell rings and you let a person in, before you open the door, no, this is I. Invisible I is here. It will appear as a person, but it is I. It isn't him. It isn't her. It is I, my own being. And then open the door. When the phone rings, before you answer it, know this. And when you walk on the street or look out the window or stand in your office or your home and see another individual, register quickly, this is not him or her, this is I. And then you can recognize the individual on the human level, always knowing inside this is I. Until you begin to expand your network of knowledge of I. Everywhere is I. What? Am I a horse down the street? Yes. You're the I which makes possible the appearance called horse. You're the I which makes possible the airplane in the sky. You're the I which makes possible the rain and the snow and the sunshine. Without the I of you, none of these things could be. There's nothing on this earth that's possible without the I of you. And if you're not separated from that I, nothing on this earth can be a power over that place where you appear. This is how cookies appear, or cakes appear to Elijah. This is how Jesus heals, by living in the eye of everyone he sees. This is how you bring harmony into your life, by living in the eye of every condition, every appearance, judging not the appearance, but righteous judgment, judging only that it is I. If you invest every circumstance with the knowledge that it is I, and I am never divided from myself, you will bear fruit richly. And I will speak in the midst of you, not only as a voice that you hear, but as food that you eat, as guidance that you know, as wisdom that you express, as life itself. For I, the voice, am the voice of life. You see, we're bringing the miracle of I into daily existence. Even when you speak to another, you will feel the motivation of I behind your words. You will know you are expressing the voice, letting the voice express itself through you. You will find resentment goes away, because I, the voice, am never resentful. Anger will begin to diminish, because I, the voice, am never angry. You will find yourself forgiving, because I, the voice, always forgive them. They know not what they do. You will find yourself loving and understanding, because I, the voice, am the voice of love and understanding. I begins to be the living self of you everywhere. Don't be afraid to die to this limited self and be born to your unlimited self. That's the whole purpose of Mystical I. There is an I, there is a voice. It is real, it is power, it is glory. It is impartial, it favors no one. It does not favor one nation or one person. It is infinite, it is universal, it is available. And whenever you build the consciousness of I everywhere, you find that availability becomes fact. What we have tried to do is to shorten I down to me, and that is how we have held I away. We have personalized Jesus, and now when we learn about I, we try to personalize I. We cannot. And we should not, because All we're doing is making dwarves of ourselves when we are giants. Let's meditate a moment before we take a little intermission. The person you see is never a him or a her or a me. It is the I of you, seen through a glass darkly as a concept called form. Everything you're looking at throughout the world is the I of you, seen through a glass darkly as a concept called form, person, place, thing, or condition. None of it is there. Only the I of you is there. And the I of you is mighty. The I of you is pure. The I of you is God expressing everywhere. One, indivisible, infinite self. This ocean of spirit is invisible to human eyes, and do not be fooled by the fishes swimming in it. Know yourself to be the invisible ocean of spirit, and then dwell there in consciousness frequently enough during the day so that you start the habit of identifying everything you see as the invisible ocean of spirit, which is your name, I. Make up your mind to let nothing stop you from doing this and from correcting yourself when you have forgotten to identify properly. Make it the most important thing in your life. You won't have to worry about how to get out of a body. You'll know that I am already everywhere as the invisible essence. The law of I everywhere governs my being. I'm not a branch. I am the tree. I'm not a wave. I am the ocean. I'm not a spark. I am the infinite self. I am the tree of life. And that is why the fruit that grows from that tree will be the substance of that tree. The human form is the branch, but I am not the human form. I am the substance, the very tree of life. I am the tree of one. I'm never going to be a branch. I'm getting out of the branch that withers. I'm getting out of the healthy branch that dies. I am not the branch that is cut off or the branch that stays on. I am the complete and total tree of life. There is no other. I am that one. Everywhere. Behind all things you will find I am. In the fifth chapter of Matthew, I think it's verse 14 or thereabouts, you will hear about being salted. The Sabbath has lost its salt. This is being salted, knowing who I am. the salt having lost its savour. We are being salted, Christ did, infinitized, removed from limitation of sense perception. You won't do this 24 hours a day, but if you do it for a few minutes, it begins to do itself. You find you look at a form and it begins to be identified by something in you as I. And then you'll notice the person's eyes begin to sparkle. There's a twinkle at the corner of the mouth, and lo and behold, so are you. There's a feeling engendered because this invisible begins to come through the tree into the branches. These human branches begin to feel the tree of life feeding them. And it is all motivated by your recognition that that tree of life is you. We let go, really let go, because I, the infinite, can run its own beautiful universe right now. I contains everything. There is nothing outside. All is in this I. When I is real and you trust this I, you'll find how effortless it is to get the water out of the well. That's the upper firmament, the living water. Right where you are then, I am. And I am you. Right where your neighbor is, I am, and I am you there. And everywhere anyone is, I am, and I am you there. I am never a person, I am always you. And your name is always I. One infinite fabric. All else is adulteration. Dividing his name, piercing his garment, reluctance to let there be only the one infinite life. And every time we make a second life or a third or a fourth and divide it up into forms, I cannot speak. For there are no ears to hear my voice. You only hear with the infinite inner ear. No other ear will hear my voice. We'll rest for a moment. I think we have some more things that can help today. Let's consider again some phrases we've gone over so many times and see how they are all saying the same thing. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Now that kingdom of God and his righteousness is I, the Spirit of God in you. And all things will be added unto you. Again, we are told in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And we know that the will expresses in the I, which is in the midst of your being. This little book was given to me. It's called The Soundless Sound. I'm not looking anywhere for it again because it was written in 1911. But right here on our little earth, in the back it says, that the Order of the 15 is a non-sectarian spiritual movement for the advancement of Christian mysticism. The order is not an organization. It says monthly lessons will be sent. 1911, by a doctor in Los Angeles. And in here is this beautiful phrase which is just like the Lord's Prayer. When you have listened to and obeyed the God within, the higher self, who is one with all, will make his own voice heard. When you have listened to and obeyed the God within, the higher self, who is one with all, will make his own voice heard. Now, it makes it necessary to listen to the God within in order to hear the voice heard. Now let's look at John. And we'll see John has been telling us the same things in 3 different places. They become very easily recognizable. In the 3rd chapter of John, the 20th verse, '29th verse. He that hath the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom, which standeth and heareth him, rejoiceth greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. Now you see that bridegroom's voice? When you hear the voice, you are joined. You're in union. You see the keys are dropped in Scripture that way. The bridegroom's voice is that which you hear, which takes you in union with the one. And this, my joy, therefore, is fulfilled. Now that's how John said it in one case. In the 10th chapter, verse 4, when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Again, it is saying that those who are disciples, who are living as the Christ, are living by the inner voice of the infinite in themselves. The greatest of these, in my opinion, is probably this one in John 18:37. Before Pilate said therefore unto him, Art thou a king? And then Jesus answered, and this we must see now, this Jesus who is answering is already I, nothing else. Jesus has attained the realization of the inner I, and then is known to himself as I, and speaks as I, and accepts no other self. That's the willingness to give the form to the crucifix. Because I am spirit, and I will prove it because I'm not a form. I'm not spirit and this form. You can have the form. I am I. And therefore, when Pilate says, "Art thou a king?" Jesus answers, and this is I responding. And I says, "Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born. For this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. And every one that is of the truth heareth my voice." The voice of I in you is the truth. If you want the truth, to live the truth, to be the truth, you must hear the voice of I within you. And this is by the Master. Now when you see a book called The Master Speaks, that means I within you speak. I within you am the Master. Always we were being led to I in the midst of us. Now finally, in Joel's chapter today, I speaks. On page 85 you will see this. "Be not afraid, it is I. I that is speaking to you is the I of the army that is marching against you." And right there we have a statement that no one could make unless the experience that I is the invisible reality of everyone on the earth. I is the army that is marching against you. What's the difference what that army is? Whether it's persons, things, or conditions. I is the identity of that which you have called the army. When you know that, there's no army there anymore, there's only I. When you know that I is the identity of all things, then what you've been calling the problem must be a lie, because I is there and not the problem. Now if you say the problem is there, you're denying that I is there. When you know I is there, you know the problem isn't there. Whatever the problem, it is your misbelief or unawareness of the infinity of the I of your own being. In meeting friend and foe, you are meeting me, meaning I, in the midst of you, in the midst of all. Recognize there is one divine selfhood. You will soon see the only enemies you ever had consisted of your own belief in a selfhood separate and apart from I. The moment you have peopled this universe with the invisible I, these forms will have no terror or fear or any form of antagonism toward you. Every problem, every enemy, every discord is the belief that there is something out there that is not I, but only I is there. And so as you become more conscious that I is there and not that something, you will be recreating your world out of the false human sense of things until only I is there without a second in your consciousness. And then your consciousness will make itself visible as the truth of that. You're building a new fabric in your universe. If this becomes clear to you, that only I is there, then your fidelity to that I demands that you reject the possibility of other than I being there. These are working tools. When you have accepted in consciousness that only I am there, then I and the voice are one. It is the voice of your soul. It is the infinite voice of God functioning in every movement of your day. All two-ness disappears. The enchantment is so unusual that you wonder if something is wrong. You're not called upon to make any momentous decisions. Everything is done. Do you notice how the shadows begin to move away? There are no shadows. There's only one complete self which cannot cast a shadow. You'll notice in the first half we went over about an hour and a half because we were not in the thinking type mind, and time just escapes you then. And I don't intend to make anyone stay too long, but I think you should hear some of these statements out of Joel's chapter. That human beings live as a branch separate from the tree. It doesn't say some human beings, or that good ones do not live as a branch separate. It says human beings live as a branch separate from the tree. There is birth and death, and the very birth itself is the forerunner of the death that is to come. Well, we normally say, well, of course, everybody knows that. But then comes the great statement, there is only one way in which this can be overcome. There is a way in which we can overcome a death following a birth. And that is to realize that since we are a branch of the tree, we are one with the tree, and we have no branch life. Now you see, you have thought, and I have thought, that this is my life. Well, that's like a branch thinking it has a life. Maybe the next branch has another life. And maybe the tree has a different life. But how could your life and my life be different? If they are, we're two mortal beings, and we are under the illusion of separate lives, different lives. But you don't have a different life than mine, nor do I have a different life than yours. There are no two people who have different lives, because we are all the life of the tree. Every branch is the life of the tree. There is no separate branch life. But if you're the life of the tree, that's who you are, the life of the tree. You're not even a branch. And so you finally identify as the life of the tree of life. God is the tree, and I am the life of the tree. I am the life of God. But my friend and my enemy are both that same life. It doesn't make any difference what they're called or what they appear to be. They are that life. But that life is my life. The life of the branch next to me is my life. because there's only one life. And now I'm thinking in terms of one life, and that life is I. And that's how you overcome the death that must follow the birth in humanhood. To realize that since we are a branch of the tree, one with the tree, we have no branch life. We have no life that has a beginning, because that life has no beginning. Your life did not begin at your birth. The life of the branch didn't begin at the moment the branch appeared. The life always existed in the tree. The life of you existed before the branch or the form of you appeared. And that life must be identified and accepted. The life that existed before you became a human appearance was always your life. There could be no sudden bursting out of a life called a branch. Where would it come from? It comes from the life of the tree. There's no sudden bursting out of a you called a human. Where would you come from? You come from the life that is called I. And I never lets go. I is always that life. The appearance of the human sense of things is not that life. That's the concept we entertain about the life we cannot see. Now, as soon as we take ourselves out of this sense of a human life, and our neighbor out of a sense of his human or her human life, and cease to have two separate human lives, but have one invisible life out of which both human appearances sprang, then I am that one invisible life, and I'm out of the cycle of birth and death. The life that I have accepted, which precedes the form and exists while the form appears to human sense, is the life that I am that will not die when the form ceases to be. I'm out of the dying self into the undying life. And Joel says this is the only way in which the birth-death cycle is overcome. We have no branch life, no life that has a beginning, no life that has an ending. We have the infinite eternal life of the whole tree. We have no personal responsibility. We have no personal life. We have the life which is God. Well, there it is. He said so. And this is the voice speaking, because every word is ordained. You have only one life. It is the life of God. You cannot deny that is my life. You cannot deny it for any individual or person, place, or thing. And finally, you will accept it as your life. And you will find that the birth-death cycle has no meaning for you. Your life has no beginning in birth and no ending in death. Your life has no limitation. Limitations are unknown in your life. They only appear in that form where there is no acceptance of the one infinite life. When the consciousness opens to encompass the one infinite life as its own, then the form is fed by that consciousness of the one infinite life. And it finds that greater vision, that greater health, that greater abundance, all the greater things which are the infinite life expressing. The consciousness becomes the bridge from the invisible to the visible. And then life invisible expresses through the consciousness into the visible form as the harmony of existence. But never do we accept ourselves to be the form. We are always the life without beginning or end, everywhere. Don't slice it off and make it a fragment for you. Accept it as yours everywhere. I want to review our important homework. because I have discovered within myself that unless I do this, I really have no right to feel that I'm serving the Spirit. Wherever you look, you are. And you are always invisible. Wherever your eye sees, there are visible forms, and they are never you, and they are never him or her. They are always your invisible self. Its name is I. Learn to identify that way every part of the day. Wherever you are, whether it's a desk or a wall, a floor or a ceiling, even if it's inanimate, recognize there is no such thing as matter there. There is only invisible spirit, and it is I. Don't be concerned about the human mind, which might think this is a strange procedure. That human mind is part of the dying self. I am not bounded by a human mind. And when you get the feel of the invisibility of yourself, you'll see that I walks through the wall because I am there and there is no wall. I walks on the water because I am there and there is no water. I am never sick because I have no material form. I walk through the fire because the fire isn't there, I am. I walk through death because death can never be. I am life. Let omnipresence of I be your religion. Let the omnipotence of that I be the power which animates all of your thought, all of your activity. And let the intelligence of that I show you the truth that underlies every visible thing in this universe. You'll find, as Joel said, we're discovering the secrets of outer space because there are no secrets. Isn't outer space in God? Isn't God I? Isn't outer space in I? Well, of course I know the secrets of outer space. They must be revealed as I reveals them. For I is the wholeness, the allness of your being. This prepares you for that great miracle of the temple not made with hands. Be patient, and when I speaks, be obedient. Prepare for that speaking with silence. For in the silence of the mind I speak. Do the exercise and you will be looking at the extension of your being everywhere. Learning why the Father said, beside me there is no other. I'd like to just say this. When I tried this exercise, just on simple things, it was quite enlightening to notice how they seem to come alive. A whole new perspective opens up. Just a simple candle becomes something different. Everything becomes a radiant living object when you know that the invisible I is all that's there, and I'm looking at it through a glass darkly, seeing it as a candle, as a knife, as a fork. The world becomes alive. That's what it is. The one invisible life. Thanks again.
Thank you.